Good morning, everyone. We are talking about carbs today. My gosh, we got lots to talk about. Friend or foe? Demystifying carbs. Today we're talking about complex carbs versus simple carbs. Do carbs give us energy? Do we need carbohydrates? We got lots coming up today, so I'm excited to jump in here with you guys. Hi.
We're watching.
I got an audience this morning.
You want to watch Daddy?
Let me know in the comments what your wins are this week. I love to talk about wins. I think it's important to frame our minds properly for what we're doing well and what's happening that we appreciate. And I'm just gonna close these windows so we don't get any notifications. So I would say we had another little family win this weekend. We went to see the Santa's Parade.
Santa.
Yeah, Santa. We saw Santa's Parade, and we watched some fireworks, and we we had a good time. Bye, guys. We had a good time. I'm just gonna pull you guys up here. Make sure we are in the right group. Morning, Sandra. So, morning, Karen. I gotta tell you, I got a new phone. It sounds funny, but I dislike. We had old phones. Mine was like an 8, I think, or an SE. I mean, those are old in my opinion. Dorothy still, she didn't get a new one yet. She's not too happy about that, but we're like 2 phones at once. So we haven't gotten a phone for years. My gosh, maybe I don't know if it'd be accurate to say like 5 years. But our phones are like not working, and we run business through our phones, so it was like always running out of space, or like my buttons stopped working and I have a cracked screen. But here's the thing, like I love technology and all that it offers, but at the same time I really dislike. It's almost like you have to, right? You have to use technology, or you have to jump on board. Like we have all these adapters, like we have these adapters for our phones because they wouldn't work on newer stuff. Like Apple changed the adapters, which really bothered me. That was like a low blow. Like that's not really rewarding loyal customers, right? I'm not going to talk about technology too much. Maybe that'd be for another show, but it just bothers me. Like you have to buy the new. Like we don't have a TV. I'll tell you real quick. We don't have a TV at our house. That's not to say we never watch TV. Of course, we have a laptop. What we usually do is we'll watch one show an evening. We watch one show for 30 minutes. That's it. Then we go to sleep because we're usually falling asleep by that time. We got some morning. Shelly Mello jumped in here. Anyone want to celebrate some wins this week? Let me know. I'd love to hear where you're at. But I'll keep this brief. But we were staying at a place when we were in LA. They had like a smart TV, and I had no idea how to work it. And I know I sound like I'm 872 years old, but I'm like, I just want to point the controller and turn it on, and that's it. And it was like the satellite went out one day, the internet went out another day, and like we turned the TV on probably 3 times for the month that we were there, and at least twice was just to watch football. I want to watch college football. That's it. But it bothers me, like to like keep up with stuff. You have to have like new devices, and you have to, like for me, it's like I don't want to spend $500 or $1,000 on a phone. I just don't want to. I'd rather spend that money somewhere else. But it's been a long time, and our phone, like we try to take phone like pictures for business, and then for social media, of course, and the pictures are like dark or blurry. So I was like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I gave in. Although it's been a long time since we got a new phone. So at any rate, that's my sharing some personal on the personal side for you. So at any rate, carbs. Let's talk about complex carbs versus simple carbs. Let me know in the comments if you know what is a simple carb. Give me an example of a simple carb, in the comments. Let's see if I'd love to get some interaction going this morning and see how we can, morning Sasha, see how we can help you guys out. But I feel like you learn more the more you participate. Like you learn more by asking questions. I feel I mentioned this in the past, but we were sitting there at this millionaire mastermind group. It was so incredible to watch this because I'm a questions person, and I'm like not really around these types of people on a regular basis, and I'm like, oh, people probably get tired of my questions. I love carbs. Let me know what a simple carb is in the comments. Keep it going. So at any rate, this guy, okay, the guy who organized the event, not all weekend, but early on in the few days we were there. I think I was there for 4 days. And for the first couple of days, the guy who organized the event, multimillionaire, sitting at the front row taking notes. Then I saw him later in the weekend taking notes in the back. He didn't really ask questions, but he was in the front row and at least taking notes. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, doesn't he know everything? And then there's another guy who talked about how they're running a multi-million-dollar fitness business. And what did he say? He said, I don't know exactly how much he said they were making, but he pays himself $100,000 a week. Could you imagine that? $100,000 a week. After his presentation, he sat down on the side in the front row and asked questions. He was only there for a day and a half. That's probably what they paid him, like paid for a hotel, right? For him to be there, and probably paid him to speak. But $100,000 a week. He's sitting in the front row asking questions. I have another guy to the left of me, and he was talking about, what did he make? Of course, this isn't all about finances. It's just interesting to me how like these people are learners. They're asking questions. They're engaged. So this guy's sitting right next to me. What did he say he was making? I guess it doesn't matter. Maybe I think he said $300,000 a month. $300,000 a month he was making, and he was asking questions like, he didn't annoy me because I'm a questions person, but if anyone was going to annoy you, it was him asking questions, sitting right next to me. And it was just really eye-opening to me. It kind of made me feel like I'm in the right spot. Like and I asked questions throughout as well. And I thought, you know what? If these people are this successful, and that's just finances or business, right? They could be a terrible like parent or spouse. Like we don't know. I'm just saying like they've been able to be successful in some part of their life, and they're engaged and asked questions. So I would encourage you guys to do the same. Of course I appreciate it during these shows, but like anywhere you are, like be engaged, ask questions. If you sit at the back and you're not really paying attention, or your mind isn't thinking of questions or engagement, then you're not engaged. You're kind of like listening to it in the background, like multitasking. Probably one of the worst things that we could do. And I know we have this up as a podcast as well, so some people could be listening while they're working out, while they're driving, doing something different. Like I feel like that's different, but if you're like engaged, at any rate, that's probably enough. Sandra says sugar. Deanne says I love carbs. Refined sugar, white rice, potatoes, pasta, white rice, white bread. Good morning, Brianna. My mom jumped in here. Okay, so we have two different carbs, right? I am not in the mindset or under the understanding that carbs is bad for you. I'll just say that right now out loud at the top. I feel like we need carbs. Now we have the whole keto thing. I can get into that in a moment or later on in the show, and I can tell you my thoughts around keto. It's not all that positive. Let's just start there. In my opinion, we need carbs in our diet and in our lives for different reasons. And at the very least, I'm going to tell you which carbs you should be having and which carbs you should be staying away from. So we're going to start with simple carbs. That's the easiest one. So we had some really good comments on here. So carbs, okay, this gets a little bit in depth, but I'm not like scientific. I don't really understand this stuff like at a scientific level anyway. So the very basics, and you don't need to overthink this. The very basics is white carbs, like usually white carbs turn into a sugar in your body very quickly. So we had Sandra that says refined sugar, like a white carb is a refined sugar. That's not specifically what I mean, when I'm talking about carbs, but that's true. When you have a white carb, which I'll explain which they are in a second, all of your comments are correct from what I see. I love carbs, says Karen. Awesome. Everyone loves carbs. We are carb addicted. Like our society is carb addicted, which means we are sugar addicted. Like I'm explaining here what Sandra was talking about. So refined sugar. So when you put a simple carb into your body, that turns into a sugar very quickly. Some of those simple carbs turn into a sugar just as quickly as candy. So you have to understand that when some people are like, oh, it's always interesting when people say I love food, right? And I'm like, that's not food. That's a packaged mess of horrible ingredients that you are putting in your body. It's not offering any nutrients. It's not offering any value. That's just a substance, right? And now we're addicted to this kind of stuff. So we have to understand. I want to explain it to you, so hopefully you can help get yourself away from a little bit. So usually the white category is the simple carbs. So we had a bunch of comments here. We got white rice, white potatoes, white bread. Those are simple carbs that turn into a sugar very quickly. What else did we get? Any other comments in here? Did I miss any ones? So those are the ones we want to stay away from. Now we hear people that say I love carbs. So a white pasta as well. Dan says, and you hear people that say I love carbs, and it's true. Most of our diets are carb heavy in North America, which is why keto. Now I'm going to mention keto just because it's an easy one. I could pick on intermittent fasting, paleo. It doesn't matter. Like we believe in balancing the four macros. Carbohydrates is one of the macros. So when I talk about different things like keto, for example, I don't care about keto. I'm just using it as an extreme, because keto in particular says no carbs at all. They also say no fruit, right? And then they would consider that more of a sugar. So I'll just clear that up right now. So I get questions probably every week, at least every other week, about keto, and everyone's tried it. Everyone's found like some type of success with it. The problem, what I really dislike about keto is that I feel like it offers false hope. So you could jump on keto for short term, right? Because we are a carb-based society. Now, when I say that, I mean like you could look at breakfast, right? So breakfast is usually like toast. Lunch is sandwiches. Dinner is a roll, or dinner is pasta. When you go to a hotel, you sit there and you have muffins, you have pancakes, you have waffles, you have oatmeal, and then sometimes like cold cereal. That's all carbs, and usually simple carbs. And then you could look at like some maybe higher class ones might have like a little bit of bacon or sausage, right? So you have a bit of protein in there. But most of that breakfast, and think about the breakfast you have at home, or the breakfast that we grew up with, right? Like Cheerios or Frosted Flakes. Like that's a simple carb and a quick sugar. Like that will turn into sugar almost instantly. Like Frosted Flakes. I'm gonna do a video actually I have planned about cereals, and I have bags of sugar that I'll do for you, just a little demo for fun. But it's important to understand that as an addicted society to carbohydrates, we're filling our body with refined sugar, and at the very least, those carbohydrates are turning into sugar in our body, which is usually being stored as body fat. So when I'm talking about keto, is that offering false hope is that you usually see results in a short amount of time because you cut out the white carbs, the carbohydrates in general, but it's usually the white refined. So if you have a bunch of bread or a bunch of pasta or a bunch of low quality cereal in the morning and you cut that out, of course you're going to see results. But the problem is that that's such short term, because most of our world revolves around carbohydrates and food and gathering. Like the holidays are coming up and visiting friends and celebration or rewards. It's all food, right? So we work with clients and they're like, why am I addicted to food? Why is like everything food based? Because that's the world we live in. And it's important to understand that, because once we're conscious of it, we can make changes. Lots of times I'll sit across from someone on the phone, or they'll send me messages, and they have no idea that they have an issue, or they don't know that they have a problem. They feel like they're not healthy, like digestion issues, energy issues, could be confidence, body weight, but they don't know what the problem is that's causing all these issues. And this is one of them right here, which is why it's such an important topic. So a bunch of people jump on keto and they see a bunch of results. So they're like, great, I can do this. I can lose weight, but they've just calorie deprived themselves. So once they start eating calories again, going to friends and families or going back to their regular lifestyle, they gain all their weight back and more because they feel like they have more space because they just lost a bunch of weight, right? So that's the biggest issue with I see around keto. And the problem is that once you start with keto, we see people yo-yoing for years because they're like, oh, I'm going to jump on keto, lost a bunch of weight, go back to the regular lifestyle. Wedding, anniversary, beach body, they go back to keto, right? Can lose a bunch of weight and then they gain it back. So it's that continually yo-yoing instead of looking for a program or coaches or mentors that can help you lose that weight, feel better, increase energy, and make that sustainable so you can feel that all the time, not going back feeling better. Actually, I don't even know if you feel great on that because you're depriving yourself of all the things that you enjoy in life instead of offering balance, right? Good morning, Bobby. Okay, so let me know. I'm going to get into complex carbs in a second here. Let me know in the comments what a complex carb is, if anyone knows. So when you're looking at the carbohydrates in your day or at the grocery store, in your pantry, kitchen, fridge, whatever it is, these are the carbs that you want to stay away from because they turn into a sugar so quickly. And one of the main reasons is because there's no fiber in them. But you could look at wheat, for like enriched wheat flour, for example. They strip the nutrients out, which is why it turns white, and then they put back in artificial nutrients. So that's certainly something that you want to stay away from. And then the more these carbs that we put into our body, the more health issues we run into. So for example, you look at diabetics, for example, we have diabetics that come to us and like, hey, can you help? I'm like, yeah, of course I can help because we understand what food does to our body and we understand what people are usually putting into their body. So if you have your blood sugar levels spike because of carbohydrates, it's not always because not all carbs are bad. It's because we don't recognize the types of carbs that we're consuming, the quantity that we're consuming, and how often. So if you have a carbohydrate like a white carb that spikes your blood sugar levels, I've had people be like, oh, I can't have any carbs, spikes my blood sugar levels. I'm like, great, what carbs are you having? They're like, well, carb's a carb, right? No, it's not. They react differently in our body, which gives us a different result. And I honestly feel like we need to have carbs for sustainability, to increase your metabolism, to burn body fat, to give you sustainable energy throughout the day, along with fats, not protein. So we could look at, Karen says whole grains, Shelly says sweet potatoes, and then Deanne says complex carbs is sweet potato, wild rice, quinoa. Yeah, right. So you guys know. At least a couple of you guys are in our MAP program. You guys know what we're doing. These are the food choices that we create for our clients, so they understand these are the types of foods that you should be having. And if you guys are in our MAP program, all of you should be answering because you know exactly what's in the meal plan and you know what we recommend. And these types of foods or carbohydrates aren't going to spike your blood sugar levels. Now they may increase, but it's much different than that drastic spike and then the crash. And that's where we deal with more health issues come along. And then also you have that unnatural high that you get from a sugar or from an energy drink. And then you get that crash, or caffeine, for example, and you get that crash and you're like, what's happening? Like people that drink coffee all morning and then in the afternoon they're like a zombie. Like, well, what happened? You stopped drinking coffee, right? So then they're like, oh, I need my afternoon coffee, or whatever it is, Coke that has caffeine in it and sugar, right? Like, how good is that for you? And then on top of that, you have I lost my train of thought. So those are the simple carbs that you should be staying away from. And in most cases, that's what we consume, right? When you go out to dinner, they're usually like a white bread roll, for example. Or you're ordering pasta, it's usually white pasta. When you're ordering sushi, it's white rice, right? Like, that's the world we live in. And people are like, yeah, I'm addicted to carbs, or I love carbs. Like, yeah, you are, because that's what, because sugar is a drug. sugar is addictive and sugar is in everything, especially when we're looking at processed foods or those really low quality cereals like Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch. I used to love Captain Crunch, but that kind of stuff, like, it damages our bodies at a cellular level, and it's important to understand, like, if you want to improve your health, at least slowly improve your health, you need to get started getting away from the simple carbs that are causing so many issues in your body. So Deanne says, I love that I can still eat carbs on the MAT program. Don't feel deprived. And you know what? Thanks for sharing that, Deanne. We actually have a couple clients that I can think of in particular in the MAT program. And they went through, I don't want to mention too much because of confidentiality, but they went through so much of the, like, deprivation and the yo-yo dieting, and then, like, the false, like, don't eat fruit, don't eat carrots, like, there's too much sugar in carrots, right? Like, just think about that for a second. And then you have those people that are like, there's too much sugar in fruit. Like, the people aren't eating fruit, but they're eating a McDonald's hamburger, right? Or they're eating a bag of chips, but they won't eat fruit. It's the same mindset of people that come to us and they're like, oh, I think so, I don't know if natural supplements are good for you. Or they'll ask me, like, what ingredients? And that's fine. I love questions. I feel like we should all ask questions, like I mentioned at the beginning. But you have people that are like, what ingredients are in those? Because I can't have this, this, and this. And then I see them post about how they just went through the drive-thru and spent the weekend having pizza, donuts, and fries. And I'm like, good question, but what am I gonna think? What do you think's happening if you're not gonna have, you don't want to put natural supplements in your body, or you're really scared of certain ingredients, but then you go to your closest fast food joint, or you go to the and I'm not saying you should never do that. I'm just saying, like, we should be really conscious of what's happening in our lives, because I'm sure we do that type of thing more often than we know. It's like that, I often mention the 80-20 rule, which I can't stand, because the 80-20 rule is just a false numbers made up in our mind. Like, if you don't actually know what you're consuming, that's why we see such incredible results on our MAT program, because we know exactly what our people are doing. Like, this is exactly what you should be consuming. Here's your calorie count, here's your balanced macros, here's your grocery list, go. With support, of course, but a lot of times people are just kind of like wandering around. They don't have a grocery list. They think they should be having this food or that macro, and they're not really sure what to do. So that's why they don't see the results that they're looking for. So good morning, Melinda. And my mom says couscous and rolled oats. So I want to give you a couple examples here. So here's popcorn. Now, popcorn could be genetically modified. Like, in most cases, we stay away from corn unless it's popcorn. Most popcorn crops are not, or not, most corn crops made from popcorn are not genetically modified, but you can now find them with specific labels that say, sorry, I lost my train of thought, that say GMO free. So popcorn in moderation, in my opinion, is a good option. So you can have popcorn in the evening. So you want to pay attention to what you're putting on, like movie popcorn. Right? Do I need to finish that sentence? That's a little different than making your own popcorn at home. So what we do is we'll have, this is funny, when Dorothy and I first started seeing each other, we would each have our own big bowl of popcorn. And like, it sounds funny now because we pop like a bowl of popcorn and we share it, right? So that's a bit more manageable or reasonable. If you're gonna have probably just about anything in tubs of it, might not be good for you. But so probably 2 to 3 cups of popcorn popped, right? You get a small bowl. You take your mind off whatever snacking you're usually doing. We like to put Himalayan salt, grass-fed butter, that's one option, or Himalayan salt, nutritional yeast, and coconut oil. Those are 2 different options for a nice flavor. A little salty, get a little crunch in there. This is a complex carb, okay? Let's put this over to the side for a moment. Now we have, this is a little bit different. These are gonna stretch your minds a little bit here. So we have chickpea pasta. So your white pasta is a simple carb that turns into a sugar, which makes it very difficult for your body to burn that off and is stored as body fat. That's why you hear those people that are saying like, oh, I'm like, maybe they don't say any, don't worry about that. But you see a lot of people that are overweight are carb heavy. It's not that they're eating too much fruit or they're not eating too many vegetables, and they're probably not eating I mean, they could be meat heavy, but in most cases they're lacking calories, and they're not putting the proper carbs in their body, and probably not proper fats as well. But let's take the carbs. Morning, Brandy. So we got this chickpea curry. This is a better option for you instead of white pasta. Now you have to understand, like, any replacement isn't going to be the exact same. Like, there's nothing that's going to match coffee, right? We can look at chicory root. We can look at mushroom coffees or teas, but coffee's coffee. You're not going to replace it. Like the aroma, the taste, like that's one product. You're not going to change it. Sugar, like white refined sugar. Sometimes people are like, oh, I tried stevia in my coffee. Doesn't taste like sugar. Hate it. I'm like, okay, you should probably ease into trying a stevia and then play with the different types of stevia, right? Because there's you have the green leaf stevia, then you have the grainy stevia, then you have the like the powder, like the light powdery stevia. There's different grades of it and there's different flavors of it, but we have this one mindset like this is going to be replace that and it's going to change my world. It doesn't work like that. It's the same thing with this chickpea pasta. It's not going to be the same as your white pasta that we grew up with. Or it's not going to be the mac and cheese, right? The mac and cheese with that powder, that orange powder that has 422 ingredients. What do you think that's doing to our body? That's going to be very different than this chickpea pasta. This has organic chickpea flour. It has organic yellow lentil flour and organic red lentil flour. 3 ingredients. That's it. All organic. And we have replaced our pasta with this, so that's an option for you. How we doing? Is this helping? Let me know in the comments. Or you think I'm out to lunch? Like, what is this crazy guy talking about? Just give me my white pasta. Just give me my simple carbs. You know, it would be nice if you knew anyone that could benefit from this show, like this, anyone in particular. Oh, just kicked the camera. If you knew anyone in particular that could benefit from this information, if you could tag them in the comments, that would be fantastic. Okay, we have rolled oats. Rolled oats is something that we enjoy. To be truthful, we've consumed less rolled oats as of more recently than in the past. I used to have buckets of this. I actually used to order like a huge giant bag of rolled oats, but I'm kind of getting away from oats a little bit. No reason in particular. I just don't feel like my body needs as much as it did in the past. At any rate, you want to have, so this is GMO free. I want to read something here. So this is sprouted. So sprouted oats is important because a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, I can't have oats because it bothers my digestion. It's because it's not sprouted. That's number one. Organic will also improve the nutritional value, but sprouted in particular will help increase the nutritional value, and it also will help improve digestion. And then there is I don't know, is it listed on here? Oh, here, glyphosate free. So with glyphosates, what they do is they spray. It might even be genetically modified. They spray this chemical on these oats so they dry faster, and then they can package them. So you're paying your employees less time to stand there and wait. Of course, they're not standing and waiting, but anytime you can speed up a process of production, you can make more money, which is where GMOs came from. The seeds they're more pest resistant, weed resistant, they grow faster, they grow bigger, but they come, in my opinion, and many others, they come with health side effects, which is why we choose to stay away from genetically modified foods. But I'm just trying to explain or give you an example. That's why they use genetically modified seeds. I can get into that in another show if you like. Morning, Donna. But You want to stay away from the glyphosate, and you have to do that by finding a product that says glyphosate free, or at the very least organic. I think if it's organic, um, they can't spray it, but I don't know for sure. At any rate, if you're going to use oats, I would highly suggest um, you find a good quality oat. And oats is here's an important fact about oats. Oats don't naturally have gluten in them. A lot of times people are like, I can't have oats. I'm gluten intolerant. I'm like, well, get one that's gluten free. And they're like, no, oats aren't gluten free. And I'm like, okay. You know what they do is they have giant manufacturers, right? It's really difficult to have one product in a huge manufacturing building. So what they do is they bring in a number of different products. That's why you see some companies that will say made in a nut facility, right? So they clean and wash all their machines, but there's a chance that there could be a nut variation in your product, right? Because I think there's almost zero chance, to be honest with you. Don't quote me on that. That's my opinion, not fact. But they have to say that on the labeling so people know and can properly protect themselves, which is fine. And but when it comes to oats in particular, it's usually made in a facility where there's other products, including gluten. Now that's where the gluten comes from in the rolled oats, not naturally occurring. But it's very rare to find gluten-free oats, because most of them, like especially the cheap ones, are manufactured in a huge facility where they bring in all kinds of different products. And probably, I wouldn't imagine they clean the product or sanitize it all that much. So you have more of a issue with gluten in the different products that you consume. So at any rate, this is my choice for rolled oats. It's a slow digesting complex carb. Oats actually has protein in it. All of these have different vitamins, minerals that we miss out if we're like, oh, not having any carbs at all. Let me know in the comments what your favorite complex carb is. We got a lot of popcorn fans up there. And then this is my favorite right here. So this is quinoa. That's it. Quinoa is actually a seed, not a grain. If you really want to get into it, I think it's actually a pseudo seed, which is interesting to no one. So quinoa is my go-to when it comes to complex carbs in particular, and it's a complete protein. And what that means, it has all the amino acids that you need to make a meat protein. So amino acids are building blocks of protein. That's you. I don't know if this is interesting. You have one strand of protein. You have one strand, and then once that becomes connected, that becomes a complete protein. So the when you have amino acids, that means that it's not a complete protein unless you have all of the amino acids to complete that chain. So when that comes to a meat product, like meats are naturally a protein, which means they have all the amino acids. So you look at a product like quinoa, and it has all the amino acids to make a complete protein. It doesn't have the protein value of a meat protein, for example, but it has all the different amino acids that your body needs to create a protein. And many of us, we all need proteins at different levels. You could look at, like, I'm really into peptides right now, and I'm doing a little experimentation on my own body, but you could look at, like, a lot of people are taking collagen, and they probably don't know, like, those are amino acids, right? In different ways to improve different parts of your, like, most people are taking them for, like, their skin elasticity or nails, hair, etc. Those are peptides, which are which are amino acids, but not a complete protein. So I don't know if that's interesting to you guys out there, but I think it's worth mentioning that if you look at something like a quinoa as a complete protein, that has much more value than some of these other complex carbs that I've mentioned. My mom says love popcorn. Sandra says oats and cauliflower. I'm not sure that cauliflower is a I don't mean to laugh. Cauliflower is not a complex carb. Is that what you meant? I'm a big fan of cauliflower myself, but it's wouldn't be a carbohydrate for sure. It's a vegetable, which is in the antioxidant category. Tons of fiber as well, but yeah, cauliflower is there was this, I think it was last year, the year before, that they were selling cauliflower for like way like super expensive, and people are outraged. This was before our grocery prices went like 2 or 3 times. So I think it's probably the same price now as it was then. Dawn says she likes rolled oats and quinoa. So here's the thing, like if you're looking at, instead of my eat this not that segment, so instead of, you're gonna have I didn't grab a wild rice here, but we have wild rice here somewhere. So if you're gonna look at your cereal, for example, like a cereal, I'm talking about like a box cereal, push that to the side, and in most cases like Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch, Frosted Flakes, obviously I think Cheerios, maybe Cheerios not so obviously, but you push that stuff to the side, right? And then you would have something like granola, like homemade granola, much better than store-bought granola. We have some really nice recipes on our website, trueformlife.com, or send us a DM and we will send you a recipe for our granola. So that is a far better option. You're gonna have a bag of chips at night, push the chips to the side. That's potatoes, right? White potatoes, and then a bunch of flavoring and salt and oils and nonsense, deep fried. You push the chips to the side and you have a little bowl of popcorn, right? And you flavor it yourself instead of going to the movie theater and bringing some home. Stay away from that movie theater popcorn. I'm only saying that because I like movie theater popcorn. It's true. You have your white pasta, right? And there's all kinds of different pastas now. There's quinoa pasta, there's chickpea pasta, there is, oh my God, I'm sure you guys could help me out. There's a dozen different pastas now. So you look at the ingredients and you stay away from the white pasta. Instead, you grab one of these, like a chickpea. You have your, like maybe you have your white rice or you have your white potato. Add in a sweet potato. I didn't have a sweet potato in the house, but sweet potato is probably my number one option. I believe it's on the lower end of sprayed. It's more natural, more organic. And then, of course, you can buy them organic, but it's a slow digesting. Tons of fiber, tons of vitamins and minerals as well in sweet potatoes in particular, and there's zero processing. It's a root, right? So those would be my go-tos when it comes to what your choices are. Instead, like eat this instead of that. And there's one more thing I wanted to mention before I let you go, and I can't think of it now. Oh, you know what, I wanted to mention, like certain things, like, so for example, like as I mentioned earlier on, morning Don, I mentioned earlier on that we have, like we're carb heavy, right? Like you sit down, you have a big bowl of oatmeal. Well, what we've started doing, like for some of our recipes, and Dorothy spends hours, you would not believe, if I told you how much time she puts into her meal plans for a MAP program, you'd not believe me. You'd think I was exaggerating. But we have these conversations of like, hey, this is carb heavy. How do we balance macros? This whole meal plan might be too much fats, which is rare. It's usually too much carbs, right? So how do we reduce the carbs and add more protein? So in the morning, for example, you have a shake. Like that's added protein. And I'm not like a protein person. I'm just saying, like, it's really easy to over carb, which is what most of us do. So if you were to add in more protein in particular, then you would find a more balanced set of macros. So you can put like yogurt or cottage cheese in your oats. Like that's a great way to balance that meal out. Or you could even remove the oats and just have a bowl of cottage cheese and cinnamon and apple. That's a great breakfast, right? It's a really nice breakfast. So that's number one. And then you could look at, you know what? I don't want to get into meal planning right now for you guys. I feel like I've kept you long enough. That meal planning is for a whole nother show. I feel like it's worth mentioning though that for you to start balancing on your own and understanding, like when you sit down, what are you having throughout the day? Like, are you having, like, if you're like you're sitting down, you're having a bowl of cereal, granola, muesli, oatmeal. That's carb heavy, right? How can you balance that out? Then your next meal is going to be, is your lunch going to be a bowl of pasta? Is it going to be a sandwich with bread on either side? Like, what type of bread are you having? What quality bread are you having? Those are good questions to ask. And do you need to have the bread with that sandwich? In the evening, is it a bowl of pasta? Is it a roll? Like, are you having a roll? What else? Are you having white rice, or are you having white pasta? What can that be substituted with? So I think those are all really good questions to ask yourself, and a good place to start. Carbs are not the enemy. Carbs actually give us sustainable energy. So when you look at consuming one of these complex carbohydrates, they're complex because they have fiber in them, because they take longer to digest in our body. When you have something like a white carb that digests almost instantly, turns into a white sugar. We spike our blood sugar levels. We get that immediate high, and then we could get the crash. And then you have all the other issues of increasing body weight, destroying your digestion, etc., which lowers your energy. It's a vicious cycle. So I think that's worth understanding what happens when you're consuming those types of short, almost quick fix, instant energy types of carbohydrates, instead of transitioning to slower digesting, which will give you more sustainable energy. And I did a couple shows on energy in particular. I'm kicking myself because I didn't talk about food in particular. I talked about a number of different things when it comes to energy, but you need good quality foods. You need healthy fats. You need complex carbs. Like, this is what's going to give you sustainable energy throughout the day. And when we talk to someone that's interested in our MAT program, at the very beginning we talk about their food, how much they're eating, how often, and I can tell you, like, probably 98% of the population, at least that percentage that comes to me, isn't getting enough calories in the day. And in most cases, I'm going to talk about fasting in another. I'm intermittent fasting, right? Like, no, you forgot to eat breakfast. Or like, I eat breakfast at 10 and then I don't eat again until 6. I'm fasting. Like, no, you just didn't feel like making yourself lunch. Like, there's a completely different avenue to fasting in a healthier manner, if that's what you want to do. But we've seen so many more results with people that are eating consistently and putting nutrients in their body on a regular basis. In most cases, you could look at people that come to me and they look like they're fasting. They eat very little throughout the day, and then in the evening they like jam big meals, snacking in the evening, craving, and then you have like not sleeping, restless legs. Like, where do you think all that comes from? Like, it's all a step-by-step process. I could reverse engineer it and break it down for you and tell you exactly why you're not sleeping, why you have no energy, why you have digestion issues. And that starts with putting better quality nutrients in your body earlier in the day. Not making up things like I'm fasting or I'm going to do keto for the rest of my life, because who's going to do that, right? A very small percentage of the population. I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much for joining live. I appreciate you. If we can help out with anything at all, shoot us or let us know in the comments. Otherwise, shoot us a DM and we will take it from there. Have a great day, everyone.